back to my channel. In today's video we are going to try and finish our Spaniel puppy. So we've got the chest to do and the collar. We are going to be changing the collar. I asked in the Facebook group what colour collar you wanted to see, and blue was popular, so we're going to change it to a blue collar, especially as we've got a lot of pinks already in the Spaniel. We are going to try and finish it, but I may end up doing another part doing like the finishing touches, because I want to blend out some areas. Like we've got this dark shadow which we just need to blend into this ear a bit better, and obviously we do want to darken some more of the fur. So we'll see how far we get and whether we actually do need to do another part, but the final part will mainly be like finishing touches, darkening areas up and adding little extra details. So today, like I said, we're going to start on the chest first and then we'll do the collar afterwards, I think is the way we're going to go. I will have another look at the reference photo just before we get started. But yeah, let's get going. Okay, so I've zoomed us in. I might need to move you over a little bit because we do need to work here. But we'll see how we get going. Now, if you wanted to add a bit of tape along the bottom so you get a straight edge, do. Because I'm using the Fabriano Artistico and I'm right up to where the indent is in the paper. I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to try and get as straight a line as possible as I'm working. But I'm just going to leave it as it is. So I've been looking at this. We are going to start sort of from the chest and come across, and then we may do the collar before we do the rest of the chest hair. What I've also decided to do is remove the tag. So there is a tag on this collar. I've decided in my drawing I don't want the tag. I'm happy for the collar to be there, but I don't want the tag hanging down. So I'm going to show you how I would approach a drawing for a commission if the client had asked you to remove the tag. Okay, I've just moved you over a little bit. So I'm actually, first of all, going to start with the warm grey one. And we have a nice highlight on her shoulder here. So we're going to just map in this area as the warm grey one. And sort of along, just along the top of her shoulder here, or neck. This is all quite light, so I'm just using the warm grey one to create my base layer. Along here. About halfway down. And I'm going to keep that warm grey one there, and then I'm going to use the ivory for the rest of this base layer. So I'm just going to bring this ivory in so that we've got all the base layers in to work on top of. And again, I'm just going to try and create a nice smoother line here. Now you could do the faded edge if you wanted, so you would just fade out your colours as you come down here. That would look quite nice. It just depends what you want. I just kind of want a straight line, especially with it being curly fur. I just want it to just sort of end. When I do greeting cards, I will make sure that I've just got a nice straight line from the bottom of the card. And if I was to mount this, the mount would come straight up to the bottom of her fur. So I'm kind of not doing the faded edge for this portrait. If we had more of a rounded edge bottom, I would do the faded edge. I like faded edges on the rounded areas. Right, so I'm doing quite a bit of this base layer across here because I'm going to start really working the colours across. So I'm just kind of coming about to the bottom of this ear because I know there's a shadow there. And then I'm just going to take that warm grey one again and I'm just going to blend it ever so slightly over the top of the ivory, just where the warm grey one base layer meets the ivory, and that'll help us get that really nice blend of the colours. And make sure you've got in between that hair, make sure we're going in between those hairs. Then taking the warm grey 3 in this corner, and we're going to just start building up the highlights. Now remember that the fur direction is going to matter, and we've got quite a lot of the fur changing direction on this shoulder. So really study that reference photo and make sure that your fur and your pencil strokes, because the pencil strokes reflect the fur. Make sure that they're going in the right direction. So I think I found a another photo for not March, what's after March? April's tutorial. Is that right? Yeah, April's tutorial. And I will discuss with that in a minute. We're going to use our light red violet and over the top of all of this. So yeah, so obviously we have the Dalmatian next month, which is another side-on profile, which I didn't realise when I chose it. But I found a photo of 2 French bulldogs, which I would be quite tempted. Hang on, that's the cat. Sorry, the cat wanted feeding. Back to the light red violet. So, what was I saying? The French bulldogs. So I found a photo of 2 French bulldogs, which I want to draw anyway for my. I have a trade stand coming up at, later this year, so I'm trying to draw some popular breeds, and I want to change the photo so slightly. But they're face on, basically, is what I'm trying to get to. Get straight to the point. They're face on, so make a nice change. Because I'm still trying to find a nice side on, not side on, 3/4 view, sorry. That we could draw from. I am going to a dog show soon with my camera, so I'm hoping we'll be able to start doing some tutorials from my own photos again. And I want to start building up my reference collection again, especially if I do look to do Patreon in the future. I want my Patreon to be based on photos that I've taken, so it's more exclusive for everybody. So long story short, we've got a Dalmatian next, and then French bulldogs, basically. I could have done that a lot quicker, couldn't I? So what I've done here with the light red violet, I've just mapped in the fur direction. That's all I've been doing. And where I can see this like purplish tone, I've just come in and mapped this in. And then over the top of that, I'm going to take the copper. Now, use the copper very lightly. And again, this is just going to indicate fur direction. So all the time, as I'm building up these layers, we're just building up that fur direction. So the French bulldogs will be a good one because we'll be able to do, obviously, front on. So we've got to get that foreshortening of the snouts right and the muzzles. But we've got wrinkles. So obviously getting wrinkles is a new technique that we haven't done yet on this channel. So I'm looking forward to doing that. There's 2 different colour dogs. I may only do one of the dogs with you guys. So maybe I'll post on the Facebook group, like, which dog would you prefer to draw? And then if you wanted to do the other dog, you could. Otherwise, that French bulldog tutorial would be huge because there's 2 of them. Unless you guys fancied doing 2 dogs in a tutorial, you'll have to let me know. I'm now taking the Nougat. And I'm going to bring this along here. So we're starting to build up this sort of highlighted shoulder. And I'm using light pressure, but can you see how I'm not really defining the fur strokes as such? And it's given us that really soft look to the fur. So use very light pressure and don't worry about like extra sharp pencils. Because this is giving us that really nice soft look, which we've got going on here. We've got kind of like fluffy textured fur, which we're just slowly building up here. And I'm going to bring that down here as well. So we're just going to see how much we can get done in this part of the tutorial. If I need to do another part, I will. I don't want huge long tutorials. I think an hour is about good for you all. Maybe sometimes they're just over, but I think an hour's a nice amount of time. Okay, so that's the Nougat. Then I'm going to take the Dyck Brown, and I'm bringing the Dyck Brown in a bit lower down now. So we've got a darker bit of fur. So again, I'm just looking at clumps, shadows, and just mapping in that darker clump here. And then I'm going to start bringing this Dyck Brown in here. And really starting to now build up this fur and this fur direction. So a bit of a sharper point now, especially as we're coming lower down. I'm going to really start building up this nice fur. Now this area of the fur looks a lot smoother than obviously the ear, so that's the effect that we want. We want the change in textures, and that's what we're trying to capture. I'm just going to go back to that Nougat. I think I'm actually going to apply the Nougat as a base layer along all here. Now this area is quite gingery, but this is just going to kind of keep it a little lower toned. I say gingery, I think we may end up using, I don't know, Bista maybe. Okay, and then I'm going to take the red violet. Oh, that's not red violet. That's the red violet. Over the top of that Dyck Brown. So you can see again, I'm just slowly building up all these colours and all these layers of colour. But it's gonna all build up to create a nice looking bit of fur. Okay, I'm going to actually take the raw umber first in this section. So this is where we're just starting to get that really nice bright colour fur showing through. So I'm just going to use the raw umber. Blend that. And then go over the top of that raw umber with the Indian red. Not over all of it, just enough of it. You see we're just starting to get a nice gingery tone just by mixing those two colours together. Now I'm not worried about this section being perfect. Take the burnt sienna, because we don't want the focus to be on her body. We want the focus to be on her head and obviously those ears. So don't worry if this isn't as detailed as you thought. It's perfectly fine. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to that, to the light red violet, and I'm just going to bring the light red violet in. Just a little bit here. And then back to the Dyck Brown. Over the top. Okay. I'm then taking this cinnamon and I'm just going to go over this to help blend, especially in this corner area. So this is harder pressure now, and we're starting to really blend these colours, get that fiery kind of orange look. And then if I take that red violet, oops, sorry, knocked the camera, and bring that red violet in and just add in some sort of fur lines over the top where we've just kind of muted. So when you use the cinnamon, it just kind of mutes the colours ever so slightly. So this is just bringing those colours back and some details back as well. I'm then going to take my, I'm just wondering what one, coal grey one, and over here, harder pressure, and that's just going to blend and give us that really nice cool highlight that we've got going on here. And then over the top of that coal grey one with the light red violet. And again, maybe some little texture lines. And then the red violet. Okay, so we can see we're starting to really build up the texture now. So again, I'm going in with the light red violet, making sure that it's curving sort of up and round. And the same here, and that's going down. So we have a shadow here, so I'm just going to use the Walnut Brown to just sort of map in where this darker bit of shadow is. And again, I'm going around that ear first, sort of bringing it up into the ear so it looks like that ear's in front of this bit of shadow. And this bit's quite a dark shadow, so I'm just going to go in with the Walnut Brown, harder pressure. Well, I'm going to use medium pressure because I want to bring in this light red violet over the top. So that it looks like this is part of the chest rather than part of the ear. So if I go in with the light red violet. And then the Walnut Brown. Okay, and then bring that Walnut Brown just underneath that bit of here. Okay, and then again just build up that shadow. And again just in with this Walnut Brown, sorry. Create a couple of layers. I'm then going to take the red violet over the top. Now you probably see a few little marks in my paper. I seem to have a few indents, so don't worry if yours doesn't have that. My paper's obviously got a few little marks on it. So that's the red violet. I'm just going to bring in some of that red violet here as well. And then the light red violet over the top, or in the spaces that we've not got it. See, having this masked off would have created a straighter line, so if you mask yours off you've done a better job than me. I think this is going to be quite a long tutorial, so it may end up being in 2 parts, which is fine. I'd rather make it as easy as possible than bombard you with a load of information just to get it filmed quicker. I'm going to take my dark sepia because this is a shadow. So I'm going to start just pressing a bit harder now with this dark sepia. Bring this around here. And down. And here where we've got that shadow going on, I'm just going to darken this corner, sort of like this corner under the ear. I'm going to really darken that up. Okay, and then go back to the red violet. Now if you ever get like little indents like this in the paper that you're working on, just ignore it. Try not to cover it up, just work over it and on top of it. Because once the whole portrait's in, you're not going to notice it, whereas if you kept fiddling and fiddling, you're going to really make it stand out, which obviously we don't want to do. We just want it sort of just to blend into this fur. So this is the red violet. And then I'm going to take the burnt umber over the top now. This is going to give us that nice browny purple tone to the fur. Okay, and then over the top of that with the cinnamon to help with that blending and smoothing it all out. So you can just see just how colourful I go with fur. And we've used so many colours, but just look at the colours that are coming through in this fur now. It all blends together, but you get all those subtle tones and it just makes the piece look so nice. Back to the walnut brown. And I'm just darkening and adding in some of those fur lines. Okay, now we've left this gap because this has got quite a bluish tone. So I'm going to go back in, first of all, with the light red violet. And again, following this fur direction. So it's curving up and sort of over this shot and coming down. Okay, and then I'm getting the walnut brown, very lightly, light pressure with this walnut brown. Might have been better actually. Let's get the Van Dyck brown. Okay, so you can just see how light this pressure is because you can still see that grain of the paper showing through, which is completely fine. We don't mind if that shows through. And then I'm getting, oh, that's not the coal grey that I wanted. The coal grey 6. Very lightly, very, very lightly. Over the top here. which again is going to give us those blue tones that I can see. Now remember, you don't have to add all these colours. If you can't see these tones, don't add them. You want to make this piece your own, as well as obviously just following along to tips and tricks, I guess. So don't worry if you don't see these colours. I'm then going to go over, no, I'm not going to use that, with the Ochre one. Use the Ochre one to help blend these together. I was going to use the Ivory, and the reason I decided not to use the Ivory was we've got the Ochre 6, which obviously has that blue tone. And mixing that with the Ivory, we would have got like a greenish, mucky green colour, which obviously we don't want. So Ochre 1 to help with that blend there. And then I'm going to go back in with the Walnut Brown. And then the cinnamon in the middle here. And then I'm just going to grab my slice tool and just bring in some little details of fur. With the slice tool. Again, this is like a little step you don't need to do. This is just like little extra details that maybe you want to include. Okay, and then I'm just going to take that Ochre 1. No, Ochre 3 is the one that I want. I'm just going to make this a bit bluer. Here. Okay. And then the light red violet over the top, light pressure, just going to bring all that in together. Okay, right, let's keep going. So back to the Ivory as a base layer, and about here. What's going on with my Ivory? There you go. So I'm really smoothing out and flattening the two for this paper. Okay, and then I am coming in with the light red violet first. And again, following that fur direction. I'm going to grab my Caput Mortuum and I'm going to go over the top of that with a Caput Mortuum and bring that down here now. And in here. And then the red violet, just where we've sort of got that shadow, we're going to blend these two areas in together. So to do that, I'm going to use the red violet. And then I'm going to grab the Walnut Brown. And I'm going to darken that shadow. And this is underneath this ear. So I'm going to sort of bring it up and under. If we need to use the tape or the slice tool, we will. But it's just going to help us create the effect that this is the fur. And then I'm going to bring it down here. Okay. And then that's dark. So you can see that's a nice dark shadow there. And I'm making sure that these pencil strokes go right up to that ear. We don't have any halos around the ear. That's not what we want. And then the Van Dyck Brown. So it's not a large part of her shoulder neck that we're getting in, but it's going to be enough to show that it's not a floating head. I don't want floating heads in my work. So I always want there to be a neck, something for the dog to be like attached to, for want of a better word or way of saying it. And this Van Dyck Brown is going across all of this section. Sorry if you can hear my dog. I'm going to sort him out in a minute. I've had the cat and the dog today. There he goes again. Cat being noisy and the dog being noisy. He's noisy because it's really cold out today. Obviously I'm filming this end of January, so freezing day, and he really wants to go out. Okay, so I'm now going to go back over with the red violet. And I'm going to press harder now because I want to start building this up as a layer. And really sort of getting to the finishing point. So this is the red violet. And then back to the Van Dyck Brown. I'm also not focusing too much on huge amount of detail. That's Van Dyck Brown there. Like I say, we've got so much detail in that ear. I want that focus to be drawn to that ear. I don't want there to be loads of detail on this body. There'll be enough, and making sure our pencil strokes follow the fur direction. We're going to build up some fur, but it won't be overpowering. Then the cinnamon, just to help blend. And then I'm going to grab the Walnut Brown again. And just make sure that this section's darker. And then it's sort of blending into the fur here. And then I'm going to take my slice tool. I'm just going to make sure that this ear looks like it's over. Making sure that all of this looks like it's... So this ear is in front of all this chest fur. Like so. And then if you wanted again, you could add some of that fur detail in. Just a few little strokes. Okay, we're coming across. Now we're starting to get some white hairs in here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to build up this part of her chest first. And then when we've got these white hairs, we can use the slice tool or the tape over the fur on this side. This is also the side where we did have a tag and we no longer, I'm no longer including it in my drawing. If you want to, you can. I'm not, so I'm just erasing that bit of graphite. And then I'm coming down with the ivory. As the base layer. And sort of across this bottom of the collar, where the collar's going to be. Sort of up to, so there's white fur sort of coming up to here, so I'm kind of just going up to here, and I'm ignoring the fact that there's a tag, so I'm kind of just following that fur direction, following where that chest separation is, and just bringing the ivory down there. So we've got like this section drawn out now, and then I'll just apply this as a base layer. So sometimes you may get asked in a pet portrait commission to remove the collar. That's a common one. So if you were to remove the collar, you would just keep bringing the fur down here. You would ask for a photo of the dog without a collar on, just so you can see what their fur does. Like, is this, because this fur here is shorter, so you need to know how far does this longer neck fur come before you do the short fur. Or sometimes you remove a tag like this, which is just about sort of picturing what's behind the photo and using what you can see to guide you in removing that tag from the photo. Now, sometimes I've included tags sometimes, and I've changed the tag to say the dog's name. That's a nice way of doing it as well. So when you get the reference photo from your client, really study it and have a think, like, if I include the tag, what could I use it for? How can I utilise that tag to create something for my client? Okay, I'm then going to come in with the, what's this, light red violet. So we do have a shadow sort of underneath that tag here, so I've not left a gap here, I've just realised. So I've not left in space for that silver part of the collar, which I am going to keep in. So I just need to bring that here, and that comes up here, right. So again, following that third direction with the light red violet, bring that down here, and as it comes down, it's longer pencil strokes, really long, nice smooth fur. It goes into longer fur there. It kind of kills it. So I'm always studying fur direction. Always studying that fur direction. Okay, so I'm just going to do this section first. So this section, we've only got like the corner of the circular tag that we could see, that we just need to ignore. So got my walnut brown, and this is a dark shadow. And this is a shadow from that ear. So this is why it's important to really study your reference photo. And that shadow kind of comes down here. Now we have part of the, there was part of the tag here on the keychain. So what I'm going to do is just add this as the shadow. Underneath that buckle, it's a shadow, so I'm just going to bring that in as a shadow. So I'm just kind of looking at what's going on behind that keychain and that buckle, the tag, and building it up from there with my colours. Then I'm going to take the burnt umber, and I'm going to bring that over the top of all of this. And again, following that third direction, about halfway down. And I'm going to bring it down here as well. And then I'm going to take the Nougat and use the Nougat in the rest of this like corner area. And over the top. So you can see we're starting to build up this side of her face now. So back in with the Walnut Brown. It's not quite sharp enough. Let me just get a sharper point because I want this to be quite a sharp edge. It's a sharper edge on the reference photo. And we want this area to be dark because it is the shadow. And I want this bit to be dark as well. And that's that buckle that's continuing there. And then I'll just blend that downwards. Okay, and then I'll go back to the light red violet. I'm just going to build up the layers now. That's all I'm doing. Using the colours that I've used, and I'm just going to build up the layers. So that was the light red violet, then back to the burnt umber. And by building this up slowly and removing that tag, it's all just going to look really natural, which is obviously the look that we are going for. I'm just going to take the burnt umber over here. Ever so slightly. Okay. And then the Nougat in this corner. Again, I'm not worried about detail. We kind of want this not to be the focus. We want the ear and the top of her head to be in focus. And then I'm going to go over the top of that with the, have I got it in here? No, it's not the one that I want. We'll just use the Coal Grey Free. There is a bit of a blue tone and a shine, so the Coal Grey Free. And this is going to help us with that blending as well. It's also going to smooth out some of those details, which is going to help us give it that out of focus look. Okay, I'm just going to take the Van Dyck Brown, that's the one I'm looking for, and I just want to blend that section where the Walnut Brown is outwards a little bit more, like so. Right, now as we look at this, we're getting quite a lot of shadows happening in this area, so I'm going to take the red violet and I'm making sure that I'm following that third direction and I'm bringing it upwards. And I'm bringing it to that point where I can see that that tag is kind of in this area. That tag's sort of similar area to here. That's a shadow. And I'm just going to bring that red violet all the way down. And I'm going to bring the red violet in here Again, following fur direction where I can see it. It curls around here. Right, so this is kind of what I'm seeing going on with the fur. And obviously we've got like the tag stuff going on here. So what I can tell just by looking at this is that this fur is curving round here. So I'm just going to add in this red violet and I'm going to bring that curve of the fur in where that tag would be. And then I'm going to grab my light red violet in this little gap here. Okay, I'm then going to take the burnt umber fur down here, and again following the shape of that fur, so it's curving here. So making sure I'm following the fur direction, and then it's curving upwards here. This is all with the burnt umber. I'm then going to take the walnut brown, and this is dark up here, so just again following that fur direction, and because I know it's dark up here, I'm just going to bring where that tag would have been a bit of this walnut brown. I'm then going to take the Dyck Brown and apply that over the rest of this area. So it's just looking at what you can see sort of behind that tag and just sort of extending it to make it look natural. So I've kind of mapped in colours where I can kind of see them, so now it's time to sort of enhance it all. So the red violet. And you're going to start applying a bit of a harder pressure now. We want to start building this up. Straight edge where that collar is. Again, we can straighten this up when we add that collar in. And I'm pressing harder where I want it to be a bit deeper in tone and colour with this red violet. Okay, so you can see we're just building up those tones now, but we're really getting the shape of this fur. Picking up the burnt umber. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is finish this section for this part of the tutorial, and then the next part will be just the little white stripe that's going on, and the collar and finishing touches for the final part, because I don't want this to be a really long tutorial, and I feel like it's heading that way. So this is the burnt umber. And then the Nougat. And then I'm going to take the Dyck Brown, especially at the top of her chest here. This area is going to be darker. I'm going to take my Ivory just over the top of this middle section where it's lighter in colour. I am going to take the Ivory and come over this section, and that's just going to lighten this up. Okay, that's lightened it up a lot, but we can knock it back. So take the Walnut Brown. We're just going to really darken these shadows up. And down here we've got some shadows going on. So I'm just going to take it over that ivory layer. And down here, just where we need to darken it up. Again. And then I'm going to go back to the Nougat. Over where I've just lightened with that ivory. And that's just going to bring you that nice little brown tone back in to this bit of fur. Oops. The Van Dyck Brown. Just add a bit more detail. And then if you take like your slice tool and just wanted to like, again, it's just like little extra details. Yeah, not necessary as such, but if you just want little bit. I'm going to take my dark sepia. And I'm just going to really darken that corner. Because this is a really dark shadow. And we want it to reflect that this is in shadow. And on here. And just bring in like a few little shadowy highlights. Shadowy highlights, that didn't make sense. Shadows, a few shadows. Along here. And then I'm just going to take that red violet again along this side, and I'm just going to bring in that red violet a bit more along there. Okay, so we've got two sides of our little spaniel coming together. This is the Nougat. Just a little harder pressure, just to build that up. It looks a bit too light on the camera. It is a bit darker on my drawing. But yeah, we have a little dark section. I'm wondering whether we should just do the collar before I go. The metal part will take a bit. Let's do the metal work. Okay, let's do the metal work before we finish this part. So we're going to do this metal clip that's going around the collar. So I'm just going to apply Coal Grey 1 as the base layer across the whole area. Okay, now I'm just going to take the dark sepia, because this bit, there is a little bit here that should be in shadow. That's part of the fur, and there's the shape of your metalwork. So we're going to start off with the bottom bit, and we've got a bit of a pinkish red tone. So this is going to be the red violet, and I'm going to bring that in down here first. And then going to take the brown ochre, because we've got that golden tone. So all it is when you're doing metalwork is look at the colours and the shapes and just build in those colours and shapes. So this is the brown ochre over the top there, and then I'm going to go back over with the red violet. And the ivory over that brown ochre. Being careful not to blend into that black that we've got at the side here. And then we do have that black marking, but I'm going to actually take the dark sepia. So the dark sepia for that darker shadow. Again, going round and making sure that that bit of fur overlaps what we're doing there. Have I got a... Then you're going to take the sky blue along that edge. bit of the blue there. The coal grey 6. So building this up won't take long at all. You can see it's just, all I'm doing is looking at the shapes and the colours, just adding that in. So that's the coal grey 6 there. I'm just going to take that coal grey 1 again over the top. We don't want any sharp sort of lines in this section of the buckle because it is metal, it's shiny. Coal grey 6. So we're making sure that everything's nice and smooth. Back it over with a brown ochre. Nice orangey yellow tone there. And the sky blue. Coal grey 1 just to blend that again. And then I'm just going to take my slice tool because I do want a bit of a whiter highlight in here. So this would be good for your tape. Just bring out a white highlight again on that buckle. Maybe down here as well. Back to my coal grey 6. Just going to press hard and just darken that edge ever so slightly. Okay, so you see, it hasn't taken us long at all to do this buckle. Coal grey 1 here. I'm going to take the coal grey 3 because this is in shadow. Your dark sepia. Just along that edge there. And that's just created your little buckle. So it doesn't take much at all. The light red violet, just going to bring that in here as well. Hasn't taken much to create this buckle or this bit of metal work. It's just about drawing the colours that you see and the shapes that you see. So the next part of this tutorial, we will finish her chest fur, her collar, and we will the walnut brown here. I just need to straighten that edge off and do the finishing touches, but we are so close to being done now, guys. So I will zoom you out and show you where we are. So there she is, guys. She is nearly done. We nearly have our little spaniel. I think I want to tidy this up. In the reference photo it is quite light, but I think I want this to be a bit darker in my drawing. But this again is all packed down to like finishing touches. Once we've got the chest in and the collar, we can look at this piece as a whole and decide what we need to change. So like I want to just make this look a bit more blended, and I want to add some more darker tones into her ear, but we're nearly there. So I will see you all in the final part in a couple of days. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you have, don't forget to like this video, it really helps me out. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you soon. Bye everybody.